I started in radio about 3 years ago, almost to the day. And I honestly, a lot of people, when I tell this story, like when I reminded Sean of it, he was like, "Oh no, like it's not about coincidences. It wasn't luck, but like it was to me because it was so random. I had submitted a application to everywhere I could find, radio or not, about a year before I got an interview. And then a
Why
year
were you
later,
interested in it? What made you even?
it was just like I was finding because I needed a job.
Oh,
I just submitted like everything to anywhere I could find.
oh,
Radio, not radio. Like it's just anything like retail, anything fun because I needed a job. So a year later, after I did that entire thing, I got an interview to become a street teamer at one of the clusters here in Vegas. And the interview is more of like, here's what you're going to be doing. Show up next week. So I did. And it was Marie, I tell you, as soon as I did my first remote, I knew radio was what I wanted to do. And
what was your first remote? Tell me about your first remote.
So it was with Mercedes, who does one of the morning shows here. Mm-hmm. And she was the sweetest to me. She wanted to get to know me as a person. Like which was cool because, I had grown up listening to her. So like her wanting to get to know me, I was like,
oh, cool.
I want to know you, like, not just because you're you, but because like you're in the position that you are, you're wanting to know me. Like, what?
Yeah.
It was also so cool because getting like the listeners would walk up and like, we would have prizes, we would have like little contests, we would have, different things, but I don't even remember where we were at. They would come up and be like, "Oh my God, Mercedes, oh my God, who are you? I've never seen you before. I'm always here. Like, what's your name? Who are you? Let's talk, let's connect." And I'm like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting to meet all of these different people, and you don't even like, you've never met me before, but you want to know all about me just because I'm here. Like, this is awesome, right?
Were you the only street teamer that day, or was there any other?
That day, it was just me. I had done another one like 2 days later at the mall for something for Christmas. And that was just me too. But it was funny because that one was like rushed and like I was put on it last minute and it was like all this like rushingness happening and crazy. But that was fun too because everything was Christmas and everybody was like so happy and like so like in the Christmas spirit. It was by Santa. So, like all these kids were there. That was really cool too. But it's just like all of the getting to know all the listeners right off the bat was awesome. And getting to make that connection with all of the jocks right off the bat was so cool. Plus the promotions department, obviously, like that, just getting to know everybody in the entire building right off the bat, just because I wanted to show up, was amazing. Like that by itself, the listeners, the people, everybody in the building, like it just, the connection that was instantly there. I knew that that's what I wanted to do because I wanted to keep that connection. I wanted to feel what that was like every time I walked into the building, every time I went to a remote, anytime I did anything ever, I wanted to feel that connection. And well, spoiler alert, I have felt that ever since because I'm still in it. But I wanted to feel that connection. So I was a street teamer from that point. It was November 2018. All the way to March of 2020. And in that time, I became a part-time on-air for one of the stations of that cluster. I didn't realize that I wanted to be on air until I turned a mic on.
How did that get set up? Like with somebody like, hey, we need it. How'd you get into that?
It actually started with, how did that start? It started because they needed somebody. They needed a part-time on-air. And they were looking at the street teamers first. They were looking at, somebody who wouldn't mind going in for a weekend shift because they needed to put somebody in there, and they were starting internally before they went externally. And they went to me, and I was like, hell yeah, like, of course, like I've never done it before, but if you show me what to do, and I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I started as overnights. I did midnight to 6 a.m. I didn't turn the mic on when I did that. I was only a board op. So like that position was not only the board opping position for that station, but it was also checking on all the other stations to make sure nothing else was off the air at any point in time in the night. And there was like that whole thing with like, you need to call the engineer, you need to do all this stuff and make sure like nothing burns down, right? Which was so much fun because I would legitimately dance in the hallways. I would be in one station checking on it, right? And then I would go into another station to check on it, and just like I would turn up one of the musics and open the door and just turn it all the way up at 3 a.m. and just dance in the hallway, go into the next one.
Were you the only one at the station?
I was the only one in the station. Nobody else was in there. There was like a night mix or something that ended at midnight. I think I went in and they were going out. So I think it ended at midnight, right? So nobody was in there at midnight.
There's something about that feeling when you can just kind of go in, especially when it's like odd times like that. Fun. Yeah, because you're just like, I'm in this station. Like I can go in and out as I please. Like this is, yeah, like you got like kind of, you have like this ownership to it. It just feels really cool.
Yeah, and it feels like there's just an energy to it. Plus the fact that I needed to stay awake, right? So like I felt like I was jamming one woman dance party at 3 a.m., but also I was like, okay, this is keeping me awake. I can only have so many pink drinks, right? So that was awesome. And then eventually they took out overnights. So I stopped doing overnights, or everybody stopped doing overnights. And then I started to do, they were like, hey, turn a mic on at some point. Like here's a 6 to 10 a.m. shift on a Sunday. Turn the mic on and see how you feel. Terrified, absolutely petrified. It was like, and it wasn't even like necessarily scared, as it more was like that fire in your belly where you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna push a button, somebody's gonna hear me. Oh my God. I remember I was like, okay, I'm ready. It was my first song was Time by NF. And I knew, I was like, okay, it's coming. It's about to be here. Okay, I have to time this perfectly because I also want the mix to sound good, right? Because I need to, and all of these thoughts are going through my head. I do it. And it was the most simplest, like fast break done by anybody on the planet. I was so in and out. But I did it. And after I did it, I turned off the mic and I screamed. And I was just like, I did it. Okay. And then from then on, I was like, okay, now I can do this. I know I can do this. Cool. I wasn't on air until the same time I was a street teamer. So I ended both of those things March of 2020 because of the pandemic. My last shift was Sunday and nobody came back in. Like part-timers didn't come back in on Monday.
Oh, wow. Was it like that, the 15th or whatever of March, kind of around there?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. In fact, I think my last shift was the 14th and nobody showed up. Part-timers didn't show up again on the 15th.
Wow.
Or 16th, whatever that is. Like it was insane. We all got that phone call. We all got that email and we were like, okay, well, that was a great last shift. Awesome. Right. But no. And then the unemployment started, but with the unemployment, that's where I started my podcast, Finding My Perfect Awkward, which is my baby, but it is a COVID project. It is a quarantine project.
And what made you go with that? The name? What made you go with the?
So I knew that I was awkward or am awkward, and I knew that I needed to brand myself somehow, but I didn't know how. So my mentor, Sean, he was like, hey, how about like you're finding your perfect awkward, like you're finding your awkward. And I was like, hey, that's pretty good. Like can I take that? So it stuck. I originally wanted to do it because I wanted to stay sane. I had done, I knew I wanted to do on-air projects. I knew I wanted to do that kind of stuff. I knew I wanted to stay in radio. I needed to some way to build a portfolio from home. I needed to keep sane and keep sharp. Yeah. And that was my way of doing it. That was my way of doing that, was to just turn on a mic and be like, hey, this is what I have to say. And I don't know if it's going to make sense, but we're just going to throw it together and then we'll build from there.
Were you not interviewing people at the beginning? Were you just talking at your first episodes?
So my first episode was a pilot with my best friend. Okay. I didn't know who else to go with, and I knew that I could bounce off her. Yeah. And then the next few were all friends my age that are in media. So I had like Daria and Ricky and Angie and people that, were just, my closest circle that I could get to. Those are my earliest episodes. And then it evolved into this podcast where I would talk to media people. It was more than just, my closest circle. It was people that I wanted to branch out to and talk to and get to know and learn from and, pick their brains about media, about radio, about getting into it, getting started, evolving, learning, networking. I wanted to know everything. So I started getting guests, and that actually first started really taking off as far as the guests going, like as far as the media, the guests in media went. It started with Camp Broadcast.
Okay.
So Camp Broadcast is this, it's still going, but it's this program that Sam Alex started. He's with the Celebrity Page. He started this program for young broadcasters to learn interview skills, to learn how to network, to learn anything that we wanted to know about broadcasting.
How'd you hear about Camp Broadcast?
Oh, so a friend of mine works for Celebrity Page, and he was like, hey, this guy is doing this program, and I know that you want to keep, you want to build your portfolio, you need some way to stay sharp during this time, do this, like tell him about your podcast, do everything, sign up for this.
Sure.
And it was just he had a few summer sessions, so I signed up for one, and it is everything that I thought it would be. So it basically was meeting celebrities on Zoom. Okay. So like everybody was on Zoom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we would have a class of just learning about each other, learning about media, learning different aspects of interviewing, both TV and radio, and chopping it down and learning each bit. And then we would have a celebrity guest and or somebody who is in media who was a guest for that day that could teach us about whatever it is. We had Hawkeye, we had Chris Cruz on for one. That's how I met
awesome.
Chris Cruz. Yeah, that was so cool.
Yeah.
I met Chris Cruz, and I actually met Kyle King through Chris Cruz before this whole thing blew up.
Okay.
Which was awesome because I get to know Kyle King before Sean Tempesta.
I love it. Was Kyle then met through the Camp Broadcast also, or you just knew him just through Chris?
No, so I knew him through Chris. I had Chris on a podcast episode after I was with Camp Broadcast.
Okay.
After he did that, I was like, well, I need somebody else, and I hadn't known you yet, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Or really anybody, honestly. So I was like, do you know anybody that could be on the podcast? Like, do you know? And he's like, of course, here's Kyle King. So I had Kyle King on my podcast after that.
So that was probably cool. Right when he started his stream then, right? Kyle must have just been starting it, or not even yet, maybe?
I think it was.
Because you probably been
one
that
of
summer
those.
2020.
He was either just starting or had not even, but was just about to.
Sure. Okay.
Because it was way before he started full time, because he was still working at that grocery store. But it was.
Oh, when you did that, it was still.
Yeah.
Oh,
because
cool.
he had a couple stories about that. What's funny, if we're going to talk about Kyle King, what's funny about that is that when he was on the podcast, he wasn't Kyle King. Like, he was very serious. He only talked about radio stuff, which is fine.
Oh,
but he was so serious. He was so and I talked to him after. He actually, during that episode, something totally died, and that podcast got cut short.
Oh no!
So a couple podcast episodes later, I was making fun of him for it, and I was like, Kyle King messed up my podcast, and this is where it ends. But no, it was funny because I asked him later. I was like, hey, you are so silly. Like, you're awesome. You're so full of energy. You have all of this enthusiasm. Where was it for my podcast? Because you told me all of these, cool stories about radio and these really serious stories about radio, and those are awesome. But I also wanted the F you, screw that. I want the enthusiastic, smart ass Kyle King. Where the hell was he? And he's like, I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do for your podcast. I had never really done, I hadn't done a lot of different things. So I was asking my wife, who do I be? Do I be myself, or do I be really serious? What do I do for a podcast? I don't know.
Now, do you feel that the skills that you were learning in Camp Broadcast, do you feel like you learned a lot during those sessions?
Let me tell you about Camp Broadcast.
Okay. Girl, let me tell you.
So I've learned a lot from radio itself, from my experiences with turning on a mic, from all the people I've met, from the hosts and the producers that I've met, from the buildings. I've learned a lot, right? With camp broadcast, even on Zoom, it was like I had never interviewed before.
Okay.
I had never done an in-person or like over Zoom interview with anybody before, right? Mm-hmm. And the way that Sam did the program, the way he set it up was, okay, we're going to do this round robin style. And you're just going to go in a line and you're going to ask 2 or 3 questions. You got 60 seconds, go. And we just had to do it. Like whoever the celebrity was, right? So like there was one with Cassidy Pope. So we each got, 60 seconds with Cassidy Pope, which was so cool.
That's awesome.
But I had never done that before. So we're all in this virtual line, right? We're all on screen. But we're asking all her questions and taking turns. And I'm like, okay, I got to make up questions and I got to make up a conversation. Okay, here I go. And it was I was not even nervous. It was the most comfortable I'd ever been. And it was, normally before that, I would have been super, especially before getting into radio and like doing things like free for all and stuff, I would have been super duper nervous. I would have been like, oh my God, I got nothing prepared. What do I do? Oh my God, what's going on? But not only because I had all that experience, but because the way that Sam set it up, and I was like, you know what? It's so comfortable. She's a person too. Like, just talk. I know you have questions. You have to have questions. You've never met her before. Get to know her.
Yeah.
It made it so easy. It made it so comfortable. It was good. Like all of our interviews, everybody that was there, all of the classmates that I had, we all had good questions. We all had good conversations. Nobody prepped. It was just all off cuff. It was awesome. And that's how it was a weekend session. That's how the entire weekend went with whoever we had on there, a guest in media or a celebrity that we were interviewing. That's how the entire thing went, because that's how the entire program was set up. It made it comfortable and it made it so that we were set up to succeed.
And this is where you met Hannah in the class there too. Right?
I met Hannah there.
Okay.
My radio bestie.
She was on another episode. So if you listen, you'll know who Hannah is because you've already heard it last week. So
yes, Hannah B. Yes. Hannah B. So she's my radio bestie. I love her.
Love it.
Yeah, I met her through camp broadcast, and actually it was funny because she wasn't we were in the same week. We were on 2 different weekends. But we did, so the week that I was on Good Morning America, and the week after that, they did another thing with, maybe it was Good Morning America again, or it was like some other network that they did again. Mm-hmm. And Hannah was on that one, and they wanted to bring in people from, maybe it was for Good Morning, whatever it was, but they wanted to bring in alumni from other weeks. So they brought in people who had been in other weeks and put us all in one. So I came in to her week, and we were all like collabing. We're all getting to know each other for whatever program we were recording for, or whatever we were doing that day, that session. And that's where I met her. And she was so sweet from the get-go. Like, she just had this energy about her that was like, I want to know everything. I want to know everybody about, like, I want to know everything about radio. I want to know everything about you. I want to know everybody on this screen. Oh my God, everybody's awesome. We're all awesome. And I love her so much.
She's so positive.
We need more of that. We need more of that, though. And she has Monday motivation. And it's one of those things where that's when I felt fell in love with her energy. It was when I found out that she had a podcast called Monday Motivation, where she was just positive all the time. This was all about staying motivated, and no matter what you were in, no matter what you were doing, no matter if you were in radio, not in radio, whatever, this is what you could do to stay motivated throughout the week. And it was just, she is one of my favorite people. Absolutely. But yeah.
And I love that you kind of were both doing that. Like, you guys both had like a podcast going, both doing camp broadcast, both like doing something during quarantine to keep yourselves busy and active in the industry. I think that's cool, because a lot of people just kind of sit back and they're like, well, I don't know what to do now.
At first, it was very selfish. I needed to stay sane. Mm-hmm. I needed a way to remember who I was and like be sane up here. Yeah. And I had done radio for so long at that point that I didn't know anything else. Mm-hmm. It was a pandemic. I didn't want to leave my house or do anything else. So I needed a way to still be able to connect with people on that level that I've been telling you about. I needed to keep that feeling. And that was the way that I found that I could do that. Not only that, but like networking between that and Free For All and you and Camp Broadcast and everybody I've met through all of those. It's kept not only me, it's kept everybody that has been in contact with all of those different things, all those different projects. It has kept us all sane. Yeah. But that's what I originally had done Awkward for, was to stay sane and sharp and just remember who I was, because I knew that I was going to lose myself in the unemployment mindset and in the like loneliness of my room mindset if I didn't.
And I think you're doing that the right way, because again, it's, I mean, and I know it's hard, you know, like when you get let go and, you know, and it's depressing and it's like, it's hard to get motivated, especially when there's not like a paycheck coming in. But I mean, the fact that you are, you know, just doing something, you know, and at least have, you know, you have a logo, you have a brand, like you have something, it's just so much more than so many other people do. And I you know, keep stressing to people like how important those personal brands or your shows are.
And it's fun too. Like, I think a lot of people look at, as far as corporations go, they look at how can they make money? What is going to bring in the revenue? What is going to pay the bills? What is going to make the most in the shortest amount of time? Right. And I think that they overlook what people really connect with. I think that not entirely, you know, because radio is definitely something in general that people can connect with. They hear a voice and they hear music and they're like, oh my God, yeah, I can totally like connect with that. But I think that they also overlook certain projects where they're like, okay, well, this is fun. Yeah. But like, how can this make revenue? Right. How can this make money? But podcasting is definitely one of those things, especially now, especially the last year and a half during that pandemic, where, almost 2 years. God damn it. In the last 2 years, where it's like, I need somebody to talk to that's not myself. I need somebody to connect to. I need somebody to listen to. I need somebody that has similar experiences, that knows similarly of what I'm going through and what's happening. And at that point, we were all in the same boat. We were all experiencing similar ordeals, as far as like being alone in a house because we couldn't leave. Nothing was going on, and we like all lost a part of ourselves with that, right? So I think podcasting really showed a lot of people and showed certain corporations and businesses, especially radio, something that's like so close to podcasting and like can like include podcasting in its atmosphere, that it could not only make revenue, but it could be fun and it could be relatable and it can be sustainable.
Totally. Like now I think, because we've talked about how like really any company now is like its own, or in person really could be its own media company. And you know, everybody's got podcasts or some kind of content that they're putting out. You know, it's like, that's why I encourage people to kind of look in, you know, why do you do radio? What's the part that motivates you? You know, you're talking about like the connection a lot and stuff. Because, you know, now, you know, you can look at things like, let's say, you know, Disney, you're a big Disney fan or whatever, has a podcast arm or whatever here, and they need somebody to be like, you know, the producer or the host or talent, you know, there's things like that, you know, or like let's say you're an outdoors person and REI has a podcast and they want, you know, somebody to talk about. So it's like so many different options now for based on, you know, like you could do a podcast on Starbucks all about the pink drink, you know what I mean? Like there's so many niches now that like, and radio people like you guys, you know, who know how to interview and to work with audio and video and stream, are the people that are, you know, I think are the most valuable to have in those type of jobs. You know what I mean? If I'm working at a regular company, I'm like, I would want to go for a radio person first. You know, they've got all these skills that these content people need, you know?
Yeah. Well, and looking at that too, speaking of streaming, looking at Twitch and looking at how that can bring in people too, is that's the new podcasting platform. That's the new, like it's of course like there's gaming on it and but even that, like that's the new podcasting. That's the new digital platform that everybody's going to go to relate to talk to somebody, to be heard. Because even if you're just in a chat, just, you know, it's just letters, you're just like basically texting somebody on a screen. It's a different format. It's a unique format where you get a lot of interaction, and that interaction is what feeds into the show or the, you know, gaming experience or whatever you're doing. And Twitch is one of those things that, like, first of all, it's addicting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so addicting.
Yeah.
But like, even if you're not gaming on it, it's one of those things where it's like, oh my God, I'm talking to all these people around the world. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're from New Zealand. Holy cow. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh my God, you're from Australia. You're from England. You're, you know, oh my God, like that's so cool to have this platform where, like, I'm just doing this to talk to a screen. Like, I'm just doing this because I think it's fun to talk and, you know, interact with somebody else in hopes that somebody listens, you know. But like, you from a billion miles away is hearing this, like, okay, oh wow, like, it's mind-blowing. And Twitch is one of those things that really awakens that.
Absolutely. I think it really ties into, like, you were talking about making the connections with people, you know, they were coming up and you liked that, like, feel. And I think it goes into the whole community thing. Everybody's looking for that community right now and to be a part of those things. And
especially during this time of isolation, that's where we've had the most connection, is in the interaction that something like Twitch has, because it builds that community. And then we got to a time where it was like, okay, it's okay to, you know, step outside of my house now, to go do something now. I can meet these people that I've built this connection with, that I've met through this virtual platform, but now I can go see them and have pops with them, or now I can go see them and go see a movie with them. Right. So it's
like these people come into town and they're like, hey, I'm in town, and you guys go meet. And like, how cool is that? I mean, even I got to meet you guys and come out with Sarah, and that was just so, like, on the whim, and like, never would have thought to do that. But it's like, wow, we have these Vegas friends now who now, you know, she's in, you know, North Carolina. Like, everybody's just like it's cool to have friends that are all over the country now, you know?
Yeah. It's mind blowing to me. I don't even know what to say about it, because it's something that it goes beyond, like, when you realize the people that you've been looking, like, you're looking on a screen right now, right? But then you see them in person, you're like, wow, that person I saw on a screen is real. That person has feelings and emotions and skin and eyes and hands just like me, and I get to meet them in person and get to relate to them this way. And I get to hear them laugh in person. I get to, you know, make jokes with them in person and get to know them as a human in person. That's been one of the most exhilarating things, as we, like, get into the, you know, being okay in person more than virtual life, is that feeling of, oh my God, you're real. Oh my God, like I know you, I've known you for so long, but now I finally get to meet you.
Again, if you're not familiar with Twitch, there's a chat function in there, so the you know, audience, people watching this every night, can interact with the show, and like the morning shows and stuff, like we talked about with Carla Marie and Anthony. This one's just more interactive with the audience. The future of Kira on the radio. So you're looking for a morning show spot, correct? Like, that's kind of or wherever, or you'll take whatever. But ideally, you'd rather be on the morning show.
So my main goal, like, my goal in radio, is to have a morning show somewhere, anywhere. Just because that's, like, when you think radio, you think morning show, right? Mm-hmm. But I will take anything. I love being on air. That is where my heart is. That is where I love to turn on a mic and talk. But I love radio. I love to learn every aspect of radio. I took a sales assistant position in a building, a radio building somewhere here, because I wanted to learn every aspect that I could, and it got me back into a building, right?
Absolutely. It was a great foot in the door job.
Right. And it's great. The people are great, right? And you get to network just the same.
Yep.
Right. And learn so much more than you normally would doing something else, like programming or production. But on the other side of that, on air and programming and production, that's where my heart is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I love it. I mean, you're still early on and still, like I said, ahead of a lot of people. So I think it is going to be a good time for Kira in radio.
Thank you.
especially as more technology happens. I mean, I truly, and I don't just say that just like gas people up, you know what I mean? And that's also why I wanted to like talk to you. I've gotten to see even, I've only known you for about a little over a year, and I've seen so much growth in just a year in the stuff that you're doing. And it's exciting. And that's the type of energy that I want. Cause a lot of people, it's hard to keep it up. So some people start it and it's, but you still have that passion. You're still doing the thing and, being out there and putting yourself out there. And I mean, that's exactly what it's going to take. So, it's, again, as we live, the path is like this. It's not always like this, but there'll be places definitely for you. And I think you're going to be successful in radio for sure.
Thank you. Oh, okay. So Maria's going to make me cry now. No, coming from you, especially, that is so like heartwarming to hear. And that is so affirming to hear. A lot of people have imposter syndrome. A lot of people don't feel like they belong in whatever they're doing, and not just radio, but like a lot of places, especially in media, they don't feel like they belong somewhere. And it is awesome to hear that, like, from anybody, but especially from somebody that they look up to hear that they're doing something right. Yeah. No matter what's happening. So I appreciate that so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I love it. Just keep doing what you're doing. I think that's the best. That's kind of what I love too about Radio Fam, is trying to help motivate each other. A lot of it is hard. Just think if you're just doing the podcast by yourself, it takes networking, talking to people like Sarah, being on the free for all, talking to people like Chris Cruz and Kyle King, and all learning from each other, being like, hey, I'm setting up my stream. How did you do this? Oh, okay. Well, I'm setting up t-shirts. How did you do this? And everybody helping each other, I think, is what's really great about all of it, because it's fun to help each other succeed, and be like this team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's such a small world too. Like, everybody knows somebody that knows somebody, which makes it even better, because that makes networking easier, but then it makes it so much fun. Like, it may, like, when you uplift other people and you're like cheering them on, even from the sidelines, it makes it so much more fun. Like, that's so much fun to do, to cheer people on and to be positive and to have that mindset where it's like, we're in this together and I want to help you in any way I can.
Yeah, exactly. And you can share in the excitement, and it just makes it so much
exactly.
more fun, otherwise you're just kind of sitting there like, yay, my 5 people listen to my podcast. Great. Who do I tell?
Right. Or like, right. Or even like, oh my gosh, that person just did this exciting, amazing thing. They just hit this awesome milestone.
Yeah.
I'm going to be one of the people to celebrate with them. Right. Because they might not have they might have 5 people watching, or they might have 5 people in their corner. Right. And 5 is more than 0, obviously, but like, I want to be number 6. I want to be, I want to add to that.
Lift up your friends, lift up your Radio Fam. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Thank you so much for having me. I've seen you do a whole bunch of episodes, and I love what you're doing, and I love your podcast, and I love you, and I am so appreciative that you had me on.
Of course.
So thank you.